everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Ghouls Night In, the spooky chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark.
And I'm Midge Munster. And today I want to talk about my favorite movie of all time and get into the history of that a little bit and what has made it such a cult classic. And for those of you who know me, that is, of course, Beetlejuice.
Yay!
Yay! It's the Beetlejuice episode. I've been waiting. What's that intro to the Lizzo song? Like, I've been waiting for this one.
Yes. Oh man, I am very excited to talk Beetlejuice. Also one of my very top faves.
Yes, yeah. You and I, actually, this is how one of the ways we kind of originally bonded was over our love of Beetlejuice. So, yes, we're both big fans. Of course, no, I do believe we did do this at the top of the Nightmare Before Christmas episode as well. But disclosures, as always, Tim Burton has a sordid past. He has said some things that I don't agree with about things, but we're discussing the film as an art today, Burton as a director, not as a human being. So enjoy that with us, if you will.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll start just kind of talking about generally the film and where it went from there, and then we'll get into some details. So the film was originally released on March 29th, 1988. It was written by Michael McDowell and Larry Wilson, first draft, and then later, we'll get into this a bit in a minute, was edited and heavily rewritten by Warren Scarron, and then, of course, directed by Tim Burton. And it ended up being kind of a sleeper hit, big success. Like, nobody really thought it was going to be as big as it became. It was then later, of course, turned into a series, a cartoon series. We have a musical that comes here just a couple years ago. So this has become a pretty big phenomenon, really. It's definitely a cult classic.
Sure.
But did you know that it was not gonna be like that at all originally? The history of this film is really interesting. So as I mentioned, the first draft was written by Michael McDowell and Larry Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And the original script was super freaking dark. It was more of a horror film, really. They were leaning much more horror. Beetlejuice was going to be a winged demon thing. And when he took human form, they wanted him to be a Middle Eastern man, which, yikes.
Oh, all
right. And his aim was not to scare the family, but he was a homicidal maniac who was trying to murder them in cold blood and sexually assault Lydia.
All right.
Was what the original intent was for him. The Maitlands dying scene was originally super graphic and drawn out of them drowning. And the ending of the film was originally going to include Lydia dying to join the Maitlands in the afterlife. So
that's very dark.
Overall, it was it was very much more going to be like a horror film and very, very existential crisis-y. Even I read one article that said the original, when they open the door to look out at the moons of Jupiter and the sandworms are happening, that was originally supposed to be them. They open a door and they're just staring into the churning wheels of time in the void and the darkness. It was just this really dark, meta, weird thing. So then when they get Tim Burton on board to direct this, Warren Scarron comes in and does a whole bunch of rewriting. They work together to kind of figure out where they want the middle ground to be, and obviously it ends up being much more of a comedy. It's called a horror comedy. I don't think it's a horror movie. I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call it that at all.
A horror movie at all.
No, but it's definitely campy. It's definitely spooky. The MoMA. So there was a big Burton exhibit a couple years back, and there were a lot of Tim Burton's handwritten notes in the original script that talked about the shift from this very like bleak, gory
Mm-hmm.
film into a more like celebratory, celebratory death but fun. um, and they pulled way back on the violence, etc. And yeah, it ends up being the film that it is. Another fun fact is that originally Warner Brothers Studios were not keen on the title Beetlejuice. They did not want the movie to be called that. Alternate titles originally included House Ghost.
All right.
And my favorite, and this was actually a joke that Tim Burton made. He was like, "Oh, do you want it to be called Scared Sheetless?" To which the studio said, "That's
Like, yeah,
perfect.
I love it.
Cut, print, check the gate." Like they were ready to call it that. And Tim Burton was like, "I was kidding, you ignorant." No. So we almost had a movie called Scared Sheetless, and thank God we didn't. But yeah, so then of course the really interesting part of this film for me, and why I think it's so interesting and like kind of beloved, is that it flips the haunted house script on its head. The ghosts become kind of the good guys, quote, with the Maitlands being trying to get the like people out of their house.
Mm-hmm.
The people kind of become the ones that are haunting the house, and it just pokes fun at being dead, and being dead kind of being exactly like being alive.
Yes.
Um, I think it's definitely one of Burton's most fully fleshed out films visually. It really shows kind of what goes on in his head design wise, and I think it's really, really just beautiful. It won an Oscar as well for best makeup that year.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I guess we can get more into the series and stuff at another point. I didn't have a great trajectory here about, I guess, how to get all this information in, but um, movie. I mean, I think the one word that comes to my mind, Beetlejuice wise, is juxtaposition. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so fun. And actually, according to the guy who wrote the first draft of the script, he said that when they got to the final version of the screenplay, he thought it was like the ultimate paradox, and he called it a feel-good movie about dying.
That's pretty true.
Which I love. And yeah, I think it's the musical actually plays a lot on that too. The opening number of, so the musical opened in Washington D.C. in 2018, and then it went to Broadway. I think April of 2019, and the opening number is called "The Whole Being Dead Thing," and it's like a really fun romp, just poking fun at like, oh, sorry, like we're gonna bum you out. We're gonna talk about the whole being dead thing. And I think that's, I don't know. I mean, other movies have done it, but I don't think this successfully. Like it's freaking, it's funny.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because it's like I feel like I 100% love the movie. I think it's interesting that it comes from a much darker thing, because I feel like you do see a lot of like the roots of
Mm-hmm.
darkness in the movie, but then they're kind of like, well, but it's wacky, and I very much like that. But like you definitely get some of that, like I guess you would say almost like a lampshading of some of those kind of like horror tropes of like, oh, it's death and the afterlife and all of these
Yeah.
terrible things. But it's like, oh no, what could the most horrifying thing be? It's bureaucracy. Like
Right.
everything takes forever and you're never going to get stuff. And when you finally try and get help, people are like, well, I'm not the one who can help you.
Yeah.
And,
And the
kind of,
instructions read like IKEA furniture, or
right.
or I guess Adam says like a stereo manual, I think is what he says.
Right. And
Um,
like, and Beetlejuice is like, if you just like look at all of the, if you just like gave a list of like what Beetlejuice does and is described by, like, he sounds like a very horrifying character,
right.
but he's presented in like a very, goofy kind of way. And I always enjoy that when it's like, I could see how you could definitely easily describe Beetlejuice as a horror movie, or do like, how people will like recut movie trailers and they did like the horror movie
Yes.
Mary Poppins and stuff. Like
Yeah.
you could easily do a, Beetlejuice is a straight up horror film
And I think
trailer.
that's what they did so well, like
Mhm.
taking uh, it's kind of fun to read about how much of this was kind of an accident too. Like um Burton originally this is such a weird thing, but he originally wanted Sammy Davis Jr. to play Beetlejuice,
Hmm.
which, like, what an interesting choice.
Yeah.
um so like somebody brought Keaton to him and he was like, "Oh, huh. I mean, okay, yeah." Like, and I actually love Tim Burton said that he liked Keaton because he had like interesting eyes, and he said he reminded him of Lon Chaney and Boris Karloff. Um
Classic.
and so he was like, "Yeah, I'm interested in him." But I mean, Keaton makes the film. He
Oh
really, I
yeah.
mean, it's a cast of superb actors, first of all, but um Keaton, I mean, he is that character. It's perfect. And like they talk a lot in interviews about how much of that film Keaton improvised.
Ooh,
Like
yeah.
Burton's like he's like got to a point where he's like, I didn't know what was script and what Keaton was just making up, but we were letting him go with it. Like um and creating that character. And then, I mean, he is only in 17 and a half minutes of the movie.
It's crazy.
And I think like taking that kind of less is more approach to it and keeping him off, like, because I could see where that character, if he were in an hour of the movie, it would get old really quick.
Yeah, for
With,
sure.
with the voice and the high energy, it would be a lot. And I think like it was so smart to give us just like a kernel of Keaton.
Right. And that's, I don't know, that's so interesting to hear. And I won't talk about it too much because I might want to do an episode about this someday. But
Yes.
like Anthony Hopkins is only in like 14 minutes of Silence of
Of
the
Silence of the
Lambs.
Lambs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just the same kind of thing with Keaton as Beetlejuice, is like, it's not the screen time, but like the character has such a presence throughout the entire film that like
Well,
you're
because
shocked
everyone's
to be like,
talking
what?
about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like you learn so much about him from what everyone else is saying, that when you finally meet him, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, and this was actually an interesting thing about, again, just tribute to Keaton as well, because, and Burton really does credit him for having such a huge impact in how that character was crafted. Like the Beetlejuice that exists in that film did not exist before Keaton came into
Mm-hmm.
the picture. Um, and originally in the early screenings of the script, they ended it with Beetlejuice being trapped in the model, and that he was being like attacked by sandworms for all of eternity, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And audiences actually wanted a more favorable outcome for him because they liked him, even though he's
Yeah.
the worst. And so that's where we get the ending scene where he like gets to take that number in the office and gets his head shrunken
Yeah.
and all that. They added that little kind of tableau just to give a continuate, like his time went on too, even
Yeah.
though he even though he didn't necessarily deserve it. I also, in things that almost didn't happen, I thought this was really interesting. They originally wanted Motown music throughout the movie, and Lydia was supposed to lip sync to "When a Man Loves a Woman."
What?
Yeah. But then the royalties were too expensive, and like the next best thing they could get was Harry Belafonte.
And the Harry Belafonte is so iconic
And
in
it
that
makes the
movie.
movie. It absolutely makes the film. It would not be the same without it at all. And actually, the actor who played Otho, they played Deo at his funeral because it was such a
Oh,
like big part of that
yeah.
film and everything. And I can't imagine that movie was also my first exposure when I was young to Harry Belafonte, who is one of my favorite musical people now.
Right? Yeah, probably me too.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's really awesome how those things happen, how the all these weird little pieces that, mishaps and mayhems, things that weren't really supposed to be, ended up all coming together into this really iconic, awesome movie that I mean, I watch it every year on Halloween. It's one of my absolute favorite films. And then it ended up, like I said, becoming a an ABC Sunday morning cartoon series later.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the year after, it started 1989 and ran through 1991 with 96 episodes, which
Oh,
actually
wow.
I don't remember it having that many episodes. I definitely watched that show. um, but it was kind of a huge deal that it was like super successful because they had done similar things with like Ghostbusters and other, they had tried
Yeah.
like Bill and Ted, like they had tried to make children's cartoons off of these kind of weird campy movies, and it hadn't really worked before. But Beetlejuice was super successful, and it of course took a little bit different spin. Like Lydia and Beetlejuice are like friends, and they kind of explore the netherworld together and are popping in and out of realities. Um, but that ended up being the only cartoon series based off of a live action movie to ever win an Emmy for an outstanding animated program.
Hmm. Well,
And
there you go.
yeah, I thought I think there's something about those characters that just people love. I mean, I did you ever watch the Beetlejuice series?
I don't think so. I remember, I'm sure I saw like commercials for it and stuff when I was a
Mm-hmm.
kid, but I don't think I ever watched it.
It used to be on like the ABC Sunday morning, and they would do the like that little like Sunday morning,
Yeah.
like the little like recess montage with the
Yes.
dodgeball.
I do
Um,
remember that.
yeah, and it would play on that, and I definitely remember watching it as a kid. I couldn't tell you what a single episode was about now, but I really really liked it. And then yeah, of course, like I said, then just two what is it 2022 3 years ago uh we got the musical, which I will say I the musical is really interesting. I like a lot of the music. The set and costuming and everything is stunning. If you are not familiar with the Beetlejuice musical, go look up some photos of
Hmm.
the set design, because holy heck, the way they translated the Maitland house to the stage is just absolutely stunning. Um, do you remember like the first time you watched Beetlejuice at all? Do you remember at all when it was?
Oh, it was definitely I was definitely older just because as has been wildly explored on this show, I didn't watch anything that even seemed remotely scary at all ever when I was a young person. Um, I feel like I probably watched it when I was in middle school or early high school, probably for the first
Oh
time.
wow, okay,
Yeah, so, like, it definitely wasn't part of, like, my family's, like, rotation. I think it was
sure.
when, like, I started personally, like, getting into Tim Burton and wanted to, like, watch more stuff, and I probably got it from the library at some point. But yeah, and it quickly became, like, a major fave, and I also definitely watch it every year, and it's just so good, and it's one of those movies that I feel like is even more fun to watch with people
Oh
just
yeah,
because it's such like an event an
yeah.
experience to get to watch it. I am such and just because we haven't talked about her yet, I am such a fan of Catherine O'Hara in
Catherine
that movie.
O'Hara.
She
Yeah.
is so good, absolutely wonderful. I'm sure you've seen, I'm gonna partially misquote it, but I saw a tweet that I related to so much that was like, there's a time in every spooky woman's life that she must accept that she is no longer Lydia Dietz, the goth ingenue, and recognize she is an older Delia Dietz yelling at ghosts to cut the shit. I was like, yes, this is
Yeah.
very true.
I I'm I think I've been Delia. I don't, I don't think I ever got to be Lydia. I think I came out as a Delia. Yeah, no, Catherine O'Hara is phenomenal. I guess I was reading some stuff. Her and the she took a lot of convincing to get, she didn't really want to do it,
Mm-hmm.
which thank goodness, because she's iconic in that
So good.
role. But like Gina Davis was one of the first ones to sign on. She was really excited to do it. And then the Lydia, they had a heck of a time casting. They offered it to Sarah Jessica Parker, and
What?
well, who's the other person? There was just a weird cast of people that I was like, oh my god, I can't imagine anyone except Winona Ryder. Like,
Yeah.
again, all these pieces that came together and just created this perfect little nugget morsel that I treasure so much. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're having a real live moment here on the pod.
Ooh, ooh.
So, first, I'm going to plug one of our friends, first of all.
Okay.
Matt from Hallow Woods. He does incredible artwork.
Mhm.
I have his countdown to Halloween calendar hanging just behind my laptop here where we're recording. And I just noticed that the day after this episode will release, March 30th, is the Beetlejuice anniversary.
When you said March 29th, I was like, wait, I think this is gonna come out.
I didn't even, my
There.
brain literally did not do that on purpose. That is so funny. I literally just out of the corner of my eye just saw it says Beetlejuice anniversary on the calendar. So happy anniversary, Beetlejuice.
Yes.
We freaking love ya.
We so love you. Oh my gosh.
Well, I am thrilled that I got the chance to chat with you about this today. Like we mentioned, I'll blurb that very quickly, just because I think we should share those photos. Penny and I, when we met online, one of the first things we did together was a Beetlejuice collab.
Yes.
We both did our own take on Beetlejuice, and we did a take on Lydia, and then we like coupled ourselves together as each character. And that's still one of my favorite internet things I've ever done.
Yes, that was
That
so
was
much
so
fun. We'll
fun.
we'll definitely reshare those on the Instagram. So make sure you go to at Ghouls Night In Pod to check it out.
Yes, give us a follow over there. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do consider leaving us a review wherever you listen to us. That means a lot to us to hear how you're enjoying what we're putting out there. We don't have a new review to read today, so hurry, don't wait.
Act now.
Act now. Our callers are not our callers, our something operators. Our
Operator.
operators are standing by.
Yeah,
Why would our
we're just like the unsolved mysteries phone room right here.
yeah
Just waiting for your call. Slash words.
slash your words to give us your review. Do it. All right, friends. Well, thank you so much for listening today. If you are looking for me, you can find me across all platforms at Midge Munster.
And you can find me at Penny Snark.
And until next time,
Goodbye.
goodbye.